Hey 5th grade, this is Mrs. Skioka bringing you math lesson 4-6 for flipped math lesson today. Today's lesson is all about zeros in the quotient. So my first question for you is, what is a quotient? Do you remember what that means? Well, if you could tell me that a quotient is the answer to a division problem, then you got it right. The answer is the quotient. And today we're going to be talking about what happens. How do we figure out when to put a zero in the quotient, and when do we figure out when a zero is not needed? So that's our big question. When do we write a zero in the quotient? So let's think for a moment. I'm going to give you a story problem, and we're going to figure out, using the story problem, when to put zeros in the quotient. So here's my story problem. Let's say that it's summer vacation. The Jordan family traveled in their car for 4 days, and over the 4 days they went a total of 830 miles. So they traveled 830 miles in 4 days. How many miles did they travel each day? What kind of operation would you think that we would need to use for that? Well, if you thought division, you thought right. Here's a visual representation of what that might look like. 830 miles is our big number right here, and that's represented along this bar. Okay, 830 miles. 4 days would be taking that bar and dividing it into 4 equal chunks. So what we have to figure out using division is how much is each one of these sections, because they're 4 equal sections and they're going to add up to equal 830. So which of these digits would you put as the dividend, and which would you put as the divisor? If you said 830 goes inside of the division box as the dividend, you're right, and 4 is the divisor. So we're going to divide 830 divided by 4. As an equation, it would look a little different. Equation would look like this: 830 divided by 4. And we're going to find out what that equals. Before we start to find the actual quotient, let's estimate. To estimate today, I'm going to round my number 830, and I'm going to round it to the nearest hundreds place. So since I'm rounding to the hundreds place, I go next door to the bossy neighbor. Bossy neighbor is a 3. Since it's less than 5, I'm going to round down. So 830 turns to 800. Okay? Let me get rid of that, and let's put 800 inside of our division box. And then 4 is our divisor. Okay, so let's start with the 8. 8 divided by 4. What times 4 is going to be close to 8 or equal 8? If you know your 4s, then you know the answer is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So we subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. Bring down the next digit. The next digit is 0. Now, this is where it could get a little tricky. Some people get confused here. But it's not that hard. If you had 0 cookies, and I said you had to give those 0 cookies to 4 people, how many cookies would each person get? Well, each person would get none, because you can't divide 0 by any number. So when you have that, then you put 0. We have to put a digit above each place value. Even when we go next door to the neighbor next door, if that number was too small, there's still a number up here in the hundreds place. Usually it's a 0, right? Okay, so we have to put a digit for each place value. Something has to go there. So now we can multiply. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. It looks a little silly, doesn't it? Then we bring down the next digit. Okay, bring down the 0. Same thing as before. 0 divided by 4 is nothing. 0 divided by any number is nothing. 0 times 4 is 0. We subtract, just like we did before. 0 minus 0 is 0. Okay, so now we have 4 divided by, or 800 divided by 4 is 200. Okay, we can use our multiplication to check. So let me get some room here. 800 times 4, or I'm sorry, not 800, That doesn't make sense. 200 times 4. Let's see if it equals 800. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 again is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. So 800. All right. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and put our actual number in there, 830 divided by 4. We start with the hundreds place. Can 8 be divided by 4? Yes. How many times? 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. Bring down the next digit. Now we have a 3. Remember, that's just a 0 there. It's just a placeholder. We really just have 3. It doesn't really matter if that 0 is there or not. The number is still 3. Can you divide 3 by 4? If you had 3 cookies, could each person get 1? No. So when we have that situation, we put 0 up here. Okay? Just like we did and when we estimated. 0 times 4 is 0. So we subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. Bring down the next digit. We have 0. All right, now we have 30. Can you divide 30 by 4? What's the closest multiple? 7. 7 times 4 is 28. So we subtract. I'm going to have to borrow. 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. So I have 207 with a remainder of, with a remainder of 2. Okay, I can double check by multiplying 207 times 4. Times 4. 4 times 7 is 28. Add that up there. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Remember, we had our remainder. We had 2 as our remainder, so we got to add those on there. 828 plus 2. 8 plus 2 is 10. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then 8 plus nothing is 8. So 830. All right. So now we're going to try some of the guided practice problems from page 107. You're welcome to follow along on Pearson SuccessNet on page 107, or you can just follow along with me. Either is fine. So here's our first problem, our first guided practice problem. 972 divided by 9. We're not going to worry about estimating this time. We're just going to find the actual quotient. So let's start with the very first place value. We have the hundreds place. 9 divided by 9. Can you do that? Sure you can. 9 divided by 9 is 1. 1 times 9 is 9. Subtract. 9 minus 9 is 0. Bring down the next digit. We have 7. Can you divide 7 by 9? No, it's too small. So in that case, we have to put a placeholder. We put a 0. Okay. 0 times 9 is 0. 7 minus 0 is 7. Bring down the next number. We bring down the 2. So now we have 72 divided by 9. If you know your 9s, you know that 8 times 9 is 72. So we subtract. We have no remainders. Our answer is 108. Let's double check by multiplying. 108 times 9. 9 times 8 is 72. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 7 is 7, and then 9 times 1 is 9. 972. Multiplication answer is the same as our dividend. All right, number 2. 714 divided by 7. Let's start in the hundred spot. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 1 times 7 is 7. We subtract. 7 minus 7 is 0. Bring down the next digit. We have 1. So right now we have 1 divided by 7. We can't divide that equally, so we're going to put a 0 there. 0 times 7 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down the next digit. Bring down the 4. Now we have 14. 14 divided by 7 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 minus 14 is 0. So we've gone as far as we can. Let's double check by multiplying. We have 102 times 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 1 more is 1, and 7 times 1 is 7. 714. Same numbers that we started with. All right, number 3. 453 divided by 5. We're going to look right here. Can you divide 4 by 5? Nope, you can't. Now what you could do is you could put a 0 right there, and you'll know that no, we can't divide. But usually we don't bother doing that. We just go to the neighbor next door and we put those digits together, and now we're going to divide by 45. So 45 divided by 5 is 9. Now it's very important that we put this digit above the tens place, because here is actually a 0. We couldn't divide 4 by 5, so we had to go all the way to 45. So there is a 0 in that place value right there. So now we do 9 times 5 is 45. And subtract. 45 minus 45 is 0. Bring down the 3. And this is where people get stuck and they think, well, the answer is 9. But the answer is not 9. There's not a remainder here yet. We haven't got that far. We have to put a digit in each place value before we can put the remainder. Okay, so remember, if you have a number that's too small to be divided by the dividend, then you put a 0. So we put that 0 there. 0 times 5 is 0. Subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. Now we can put the remainder. The remainder is 3. If we had not put the 0 here in the ones place, we would have 9 with a remainder of 3. If you double check, then you would see that 9 times 5 is 45, and you added the remainder of 3, then you would get 48. And you would see that that is not the same number that we started off with in our dividend. Okay, so let's double check with the answer that we did get and see if we got it right. 90 times 5. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 9 is 45. That doesn't look like a 0, does it? Then we'll add on our remainder, 3, 453. All right, one more. 941 divided by 2. We'll start with the 9. 9 divided by 2, if you know your 2's, you'll know that 4 times 2 is 8, and that's the closest we can get to 9 without going over. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down the next digit. So now we have 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 7 times 2 is 14. Subtract, we get 0. Bring down the next digit. Remember, this is where people are going to get stuck. Some people are going to say, well, it's 47 with a remainder of 1, and they're going to get it wrong. That is not the right answer. We have to bring down the next digit. So let me get rid of that. Bring down the 1, and we put a 0 there because we can't divide 1 by 2 evenly. 0 times 2 is 0. We subtract, and 1 minus 0 is 1. Now we can put our remainder. Let's double check. 470 times 2. Then we'll add on the remainder. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. Add on the remainder. We get 941. All right. Now, time for some independent practice. Let's see how you do on your own. Don't forget to put something in each place value. So if you have a digit here in the hundreds place, you have to have something there. Even if it's a 0, you have to have some digit in each place value. Don't forget that. Here's our first problem. 880 divided by 2. Write this down on your paper. Solve it. There's going to be a couple more, so you don't have to solve it right now. You can solve it later. Our next problem is 540 divided by 5. If you didn't get that other problem written down, just rewind the video. Write it down. Pause it. 540 divided by 5. And then our last problem, 840 divided by 6. 840 divided by 6. Try those 3 problems. See See if you can find the answers. Show them to your parents. Get your parent to sign your paper, and bring your paper tomorrow to check your work and see if you got your answers right. You'll get a pride point for showing determination, working your hardest even when you're at home. Nice work today. Thanks. Remember, if you have any questions, write down on your paper, and then tomorrow when we have math, we'll discuss them. Thanks. Have a great night. Bye-bye.